Welcome back to another episode of the Career Vault podcast. And today we are here with really one of our star clients. She's become such an inspiration in the Career Vault community just because honestly, she's just created her own path as an operator, head of operations for reInvent Telecom. And she'll share a little bit more about what she's doing. But what's really impressive is, Amy not only had to leave a company after 13 years, but she entered one of the toughest job markets in the last decade, really reinvented herself and elevated, evolved, and had a breakthrough. So, Amy, thank you so much for making the time to share your story.
Of course, happy to be here. Thanks for inviting me.
So Amy Frentz, like I know when you met us, you were going through a big crossroads life transition, career transition. And so, can you share a little bit about kind of what brought you to the table with Career Evolved and what were you looking to achieve? What was going on at that time?
Yeah, so I had recently left a company called LiveOps. They were a BPO contact center. I spent 13 years there in a variety of different roles, leaving there as their SVP of operations. And when I left, I think even though I knew it was is coming, there was just overwhelming, I think, grief. Because you're leaving something that you've loved, people that you've loved working with, and just this really emotional thing. And I think that's what probably caught me most off guard was just the emotional attachment I had to my former title, my former teams, my former colleagues, my former work product, the brand I had built with internal people, clients, customers, you name it. And so I went through a little bit of that emotional like grieving process, but then I gave myself a deadline. I said, you have to pull yourself together because no one's coming to save you and you've got this, figure this out. And so I went and I started to try and figure it out, right? You go to the resume builder and you start looking on LinkedIn, and I got maybe a day and a half in, and I thought, gosh, like could I do this on my own? Yes. Do I want to? No. And I think there's a lot of reasons for that. Number one is you look at the best athletes out there, all of them have trainers. They've got teams of trainers. And it's not because they don't know how to work out or recover their own bodies, but they know that doing it with experts is the best way to maximize their output. And that's how I really approached my career. It's the most valuable thing for me and where I'm going. And I wanted a team of experts to be able to help me through this transition. So that's what led me to Career Evolved and the Career Evolved community.
Awesome. And I think that, for me, when I hear you speak, and I've heard you speak multiple times inside the community, I could just tell you're a really highly conscious leader, very self-aware. And, one of the things I'm very passionate about is just really raising the consciousness of corporate America and the leaders that I want to help elevate are really who you embody to be. You're really in tune emotionally, and emotional intelligence, I think, is what makes you such a unique operator. So tell me about like I think EQ is what is your ultimate edge if I had to, because after all the operators I've spoken to, you just have this certain energy to you. Do you think that, going in and competing at a head of ops, you do know most of those people are men you're competing against, right? How do
Yep.
you kind of get your edge in this market? Because I'm sure there's fear of, oh my God, I'm entering the toughest market in a decade, and I'm competing at the top vice president, head of ops level. What was going through your brain? Were you feeling a little stressed or you're like, I've got this?
There is definitely stress there. Even if I didn't show it, I'm like that duck, smooth sailing on top, but underneath you're pedaling like crazy, just trying to get where you're going. I think for me, there was also an element of I was leaving an industry. I was going from contact center BPO space, and I knew I wanted to go into something that was similar to use my skill sets, but I wanted to stretch my own self and my own growth and try a different industry. So there was an element of maybe it's imposter syndrome, or maybe it's that how will I show up when you stack me next to people who have been leaders of operation for other SaaS companies or other telecom companies, which is the space I'm in now. And for me, it was really leaning into my strengths. So I know I'm not an expert at switches or APIs or networks, but I do know people. I know change management. I know what it's like to take a company from small to big to small again and go through those ebbs and flows. I think at first I was self-conscious about the fact that I was only with one company for so long, but I realized that it was actually a superpower because I was able to transition through so many different life cycles and seasons with one organization to really understand how you navigate that change. And one of the most important things is how do you bring people along with you? So I've really leaned into that EQ side of it, and certainly being a mom has helped me with that. You get just like this other level of caring and consideration, and how are they feeling about this, how can I help them navigate this. And so when you're running an operations department, a lot of that is just the people management and making sure that you're supporting their needs. Some of it is things like, do they have the right equipment, but a lot of it is, how are they getting the support, how are they able to navigate all of the different internal and external pressures that come with performing.
Yeah, and I mean, honestly, you've got the ops, the P&L, the intellect, plus the EQ, and I think people don't realize that that's truly the edge, right? Because we've got AI, we've got all these tools to quickly make decisions, but bringing that other layer and element, I think, is what ultimately allowed you to shine through the competition. Because ultimately what you created this opportunity for yourself and it was not posted, and I think a lot of people are really confused about how that even can happen, right? So tell me about this whole idea of, like, the hidden job market. Did you expect, 'cause you hadn't been in the job market for over a decade, right? Like, I'm guessing you didn't
Yeah.
expect, maybe you were thinking coming into this, "I'm gonna probably post on a job board, talk to a recruiter." Is that kind of the expectation versus you kind of shift the whole paradigm with your approach? And I'd love to just hear how that evolved with this job search versus past ones.
Gosh, that is such a great, like, commentary on what the job market is these days. So, I think I knew it would be challenging to find a job at the level I was looking for, especially the season I was looking in, which was Q4, where a lot of people are just focusing on closing the books. I don't think I expected to have such radio silence from the job boards and the job postings. That was truly shocking for me, as just how, you're right, hidden, I think the elevated positions are. And so, knowing that, I really approach it from the lens of, first of all, I just had this belief that something would happen. I would find the right opportunity. And a lot of that could have been like the fake it till you make it, believe it until it happens, that manifest destiny, but you also have to put in the work. So as I was putting in the work, it was more about, how do I not find the end destination? Because I didn't know where I would end up. I didn't know what kind of company I wanted to work for, or what industry I wanted to work in. I just knew that I wanted to work for a high impact, low ego uh, organization and team. That was the most important thing, is finding that right cultural fit. And so I just started talking to people that I admired and respected. I think one of the learns and reflections I had about leaving an organization after 13 years is, so much of my network, the nucleus was that role, that company, that position. And when I was trying to pivot industries, I realized how in the dark I was to networking outside of that. So I just focused on, how do I meet the most impressive people I can, including yourself, Olivia, because I found that every conversation I had with someone else who was aspirational, like-minded, a really an industry professional and expert in their own right, there was value for me certainly, but hopefully for them too. So it was more of a, hey, I'm in this transition. I would just love to get to know you more, and it was more about like, hey, you went through this transition a couple of years ago. Tell me what you learned. Or I hear your company is going through some similar executive changes. Tell me what that's been like and how I can support my new team when I'm eventually in that seat. And I just found that that was a really healthy way for me to keep expanding, keep growing. Felt like I was getting success, because trying to do the networking and the posting of jobs, like, when you don't get responses, when you're not getting that immediate feedback, that can be like the silence is deafening. So I felt that engaging in more authentic networking, I was getting like that hit of dopamine, if you will, every time someone would respond and I would have that connection, that meeting, whether it was someone inside of Career Evolved or outside of Career Evolved, it helped generate momentum. It kept the flywheel going. So you kind of had that inertia moving in your favor.
I think one of the mindsets that you have that is rare, that's really hard to do is like being detached from any outcome with this process because it's so relational and it's so emotional when you're doing brand building and, essentially like trying to get career promoters or advocates that'll really support your search. And with you, you didn't try to push or say, do you know any I'm looking for a job, I'm looking for a job, here's my resume. That's sadly how most people are operating, and they don't understand at this level, you can't push, you have to create the pull, and I think what you're really skilled at is actually creating leverage emotionally where people actually want to advocate for you, and I think a lot of people are too stuck in this more transactional mode where do do you know anyone looking? Do you know anyone looking? And it's like, it goes nowhere because, quite frankly, people don't have the energy to go look for you, and you haven't given them a reason to care. So I think what if you could tell a little bit about that, because it's just when I hear how you're talking about this, yes, you're results oriented, but a lot of people are like, well, how do I know who has the job? And they wanna think about it in that way. How did you let go of that more operational, results-oriented thought process? Because 'Cause I'm sure if you were to do it that way, you probably wouldn't even have ended up where you are now.
That's 100% true, and I'm glad I give off the perception that I was very detached because a lot of times it does feel personal. You feel connected to the outcome of a conversation or a lead or something that feels like it might turn into something. So part of it was just protecting my own mental space, like making time for it, getting outside, spending time with people that I care about. And one thing that was in the back of my mind is, again, I trusted that I would find something. I didn't know when, I didn't know what, but I trusted that I would. And I wanted to be able to say, when I looked back and said, how did I spend however long I was in this transition? Did I spend it wisely? Did I make the most of it? Because before long, you're back in the rat race and on the hamster wheel, and really back in corporate world. And so that was one thing in the back of my mind. The other thing is, I read, I think it was Sarah Blakely, the CEO of Spanx. She said, "If you don't know what to pursue in life, pursue yourself." And so that's what I did too. Is I really worked on honing my skills and my thoughts as a leader and as an operator, and that was kind of the mindset I had going into these conversations. It wasn't about the destination, it was about building my arsenal. So it was, what can I learn from the person across the seat from me? What can I share to help them? And I think that genuine connection and wanting to get really a mutual outcome for both sides of the table, it led to things that I didn't even know would take place. But what is true is like all of these, all of the outreach, all of the network, all of the connections, big, small, and different, a seed was being planted. And you don't really know if it's growing until you see a sprout. It could be there, it could be dormant. Take a little longer, but you're planting a seed, and then it's up to the point to watering it. And the reality is, you only need one of those to sprout. You only need that one to come through. So it really is knowing that most of the work is underneath the surface, and you're not going to see any outcomes or any job offers or anything like that. I think the other thing I would ask is keeping the mindset of the person who is across the table from me or on the other side of that conversation. So when they would say like, "How can I help you?" I You're right, I wasn't looking for them to have a job or anything like that, because that also puts pressure on them, and a lot of these were promoters of mine. So I knew that they might not present opportunities because maybe they didn't feel like it was good enough for me or it wasn't the right fit. Like, they wanted to make sure that if they were making an introduction, it would be meaningful. So I took the pressure off the table and I just said, "If there's anyone you want that is a thought leader, a like-minded individual." I really wanted to engage with more powerful and impressive women, especially here in the Phoenix area because it's such a growing hub for business. And that was a really easy thing for them to latch onto. They said, "Oh yeah, I've got a bunch of people who are really impressive." Especially when I was talking to a lot of my male counterparts, as they said, "Oh yeah, there's this powerhouse. Go talk to her. You'll love her." And everyone felt really good leaving that conversation because there was something that we got to take away with, but there was no pressure behind it. There's no pressure behind a conversation around business and talking shop.
That's awesome. And I think that what people don't necessarily realize is like, so you ultimately landed a role where you're serving the president or the CEO, right? And
Mhm.
so at that level, so many people can do the job really well. So what you're really marketing is the experience of you serving them in their mission. And that's the differentiator, right? When everyone can technically do the job at a high level at that level, right? It's a game of
Mhm.
inches. And for you,
Yes.
your emotional attunement, and we talk about this, the four C's, right? Curiosity, care, concern, and certainty. Four of those energies are actually pretty soft and feminine, right? Because those level of leaders don't want to be pitched at. They want
Yeah.
you to understand their vision and align with it. And I think that's ultimately what I witnessed that you mastered. Can you talk a little bit about how you approached that level of a leader to create that kind of trust and value?
Yeah, that's a great question. So, when I had a conversation with this leader, I truly didn't know if there was a job. There wasn't a job, candidly. It was more about I recognized that he had been in the CEO president suite for about a year, and so it was more around this person could be just like whoever I'm going to be working with on my next career. So if I have access to him, what would I ask him? And so I just talked. I said, in your transition to being in this C-suite here at this company, what what things have you looked for? What problems are you having? Where are you seeing progress and where are you seeing friction? And it was really more engaging to understand how he was thinking about the business. And that helped me understand what value could I bring to an organization like his. In that moment, I was really treating it as like a practice run for when I did have the next conversation or hopefully when I got my first interview. Because at that point, I didn't even have an interview with anyone yet. Because to your call out, it's a hidden job market these days. And so it was really just around treating it like a mind share versus a pursuit of something. And it was coming from the lens of a peer. So I was talking to him more on the peer level. And I think how I showed up just demonstrated that I understood the business, even though I didn't understand the technology. I understood the business, I understood where he was going, the problems he was facing. I had done something similar in terms of digital transformation and how to adopt technology in an era where technology changes every 24 hours. And how do you bring people along for that journey and help unlock new things? So I was able to speak from a level of experience and confidence, but there was still a vulnerability of me asking questions around how did that work here, and wow, what do you have done differently, and what would you look for in kind of your future leadership vision. So that was really the approach that I took, and by the end of it, I think he was like, "Wow, this was a really great interview," and I didn't treat it that as anything other than that, and so I think we were both surprised by the authentic conversation we were able to have without the guise of an interview. So it really came across very organic versus it being, yes, all right, great. I'm talking to the recruiter, and now the recruiter's positioning me for this. It was just no expectations or low expectations and a really high value conversation that came out of it.
And clearly, with that kind of intention and people listening, you really can't fake energy. These are highly sophisticated buyers. They will feel it a mile away, right?
Yes.
So I think the fact that he felt so truly supported and genuinely connected that you were able to uncover so much opportunity for his business, right? And where did that go for you? Did you see the at what point where you're like, "Oh my gosh, I see so much alignment. This could be it." Or did you still kind of let it flow? Did you ever really consider driving that forward? How did it all develop into this opportunity?
Yeah, so throughout the conversation, there were moments where I would say, "Hey, I've experienced something similar. I'm happy to send you a couple resources that were really helpful, just so you have it." And he was like, "Yeah, that would be great." And so there was an organic way for me to, first of all, add value to the conversation, which I'm always looking to do. And in any time I meet with someone, especially someone who I know their time is valuable, executives, CEOs, their time is valuable. So I want to make sure that I'm giving them something that says, "Wow, that was worth my time." And so I just sent off a couple resources. If anything, we walk away saying that's someone in my arsenal, that's someone who can serve on my personal advisory board if I ever have questions around this problem or this opportunity. And I'll be real honest, I didn't hear anything back for weeks, and that was okay because I didn't have the expectation. But I think leaving that conversation, I felt just a deeper respect for him as a leader, the mission that the company was going on. And so when I had an opportunity to connect with him again, I kind of just asked for a follow up. That was a great conversation. Would you like to get together again? I'd love to see how things are going with what we talked about. And he jumped at it. I thought, okay, well maybe this could be something. Maybe he's looking to make a change, and maybe there's an opening for me here. And so at that point, I started doing a little bit more of like the research. So getting my doctor hat on, researching what their businesses were going through, the problems they were facing, so I could be a little bit more knowledgeable and speak more intelligently. But I was still pursuing other conversations in other networks because this is just one seed that I'm planting. You plant a harvest. You don't just plant one seed, you plant a lot because you never know what's going to happen. You want to make sure that you're continuing to invest in your network and your opportunities so you have as many to pick from as possible.
Awesome. And so I'm curious, like, as you look back on this transition and like most people, obviously you're a top tier leader. You didn't just want a job. You wanted the alignment, you wanted a breakthrough. That would be the only reason you would invest, right? You wouldn't invest to go backwards. So like when you kind of came to the table to make this investment and you look back, did you get what you thought you would out of it? Or how do you look back on the value of that investment?
I think it was tremendously valuable. I felt like I really took the intention to, first of all, rest because 13 years, I maybe took like 5 vacations. And
Oh my
so,
gosh.
how do you recharge knowing that the next time you jump in, it's going to be like you're trying to catch a moving train, no matter where you end up. That's your experience when you're onboarding into a new company, especially at an executive level. I did feel like I had the support that I wanted and was looking for from a group of peers who are going through the same thing. Someone to say, "Yeah, this really sucks," or "Hey, you're really great at this." Kind of like what you've done along the way is you highlight my strengths because there's always moments of doubt. In fact, going through the exercise in the program about writing out your 50 reasons why and the belief statements, that was super powerful for me because it got me out of my own head. Which was really important to have that detachment, to be able to be objective around the talents I bring without fear of ego or anything else getting in the way. It's all on paper. This is it. It matches their resume. It matches their company mission and values. So that was something that was really important to me too, is to make sure I had that sounding board. And I absolutely found that with this organization and with what I was able to accomplish there. And lastly, it was again continuing to invest in myself. Every conversation I had with a high performing individual, I would ask them, "Hey, if you had this time, if you had a few months off, what would you do with it? How would you invest your time?" And I got great ideas: books to read, podcasts to listen to, trips to take, ways to spend their time that they wish they had done or that they wish they could do. So it was a really great way for me to reset, recharge, and reinvest because everyone says, "Oh, I would love to do this. I wish I could learn that." You talk about professional development. I really use this as personal and professional development time. And I use all the resources that I had through Career Evolved, through my network, and just through my own kind of research and devices. And I went on a lot of hikes and I just really poured into myself because as a high performer, there's what is Simon Sinek, leaders eat last. So there's got to be a time where you're investing in yourself. And so I really did try to make the most of that.
That's awesome, and I think that it's clear you're on this this is the beginning of your trajectory. You still have so much runway left in your career, so, like, obviously, you're gonna keep evolving and keep building these relationships, like, is this something that you still have time for to keep curating and cultivating, or because that's kind of the hard part, right? Once you're working to not just get stuck in the grind and still make time for it. Does it still kinda get integrated for you now?
Oh, I feel like you're in my brain. Yeah. So, yeah, sometimes it's easier than others. I have a personal goal to keep at least two networking, non-immediate work related conversations or events that keep expanding my network. And it's not to look for a new job. It is just to keep investing in my professional brand because everyone has a personal brand and you have to care for that. You have to make sure that you're putting in the work. Sometimes that feels like a lot. So there's weeks where I'm exhausted, but I've already committed to a happy hour or an event or a conversation. But it's interesting more often than not, after I go to that and I have that conversation, I usually end up feeling more energized and I have more ideas that actually pour into the work I'm doing today. So it doesn't feel like I'm doing something off to the side. I feel like I'm having a creative infusion of thought leadership that I might not have gotten otherwise if I just stuck to what was on my agenda, what was in my project plan, what was on my calendar for the day, but taking that intentional step to keep planting seeds because you never know what they're going to grow into. It could be a business thing, it could be a personal connection, a new friend that you didn't know you had, whatever it might be, but how do you continue to pour and invest into yourself? And that's what I'm trying to do right now is kind of balance the two. But it's hard. It's definitely hard sometimes. Someone said like, how do you do it all? And well, you don't. I just feel like I just choose what I'm going to fail at this week. that's
I know what you
that's how
mean.
you keep moving.
I'm the same way because it's like but I have to remind myself, aligned connections really are like rocket fuel because it's energizing and expansive.
Mhm.
It's not the same as just work, so you have to be really intentional about, who you wanna make space for and who's aligned with what you wanna learn or what you need right now, what energy do you need, and so, thank you so much. I think it's been so awesome to see your journey, and I'm excited to see where you go next.
Thank you so much. And again, thank you to you, Ryan, the whole Career Evolved community for being such a key player in my success. I truly I truly don't know where I'd be without it. I felt like it kept me on the rails when I needed it. Like, when you're driving on the road and there's like those bumps on the side when you're getting too close to the edge, that's what this program did for me. It helped me stay between the white lines and keep focus on where I was going. And certainly was a key piece of how I got there.
And you did the work and you went deep with it. So seriously, congratulations. It shows in you're a model in this community. Your name is still dropped regularly in here. So congratulations.
Thank you so much.